Hey guys, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. Happy Friday, everybody, or happy Good Friday for those of you that are celebrating the death of Christ today. I am so thrilled to welcome you to another art journaling demo because today we're going to be painting something inspired by that death of Jesus Christ, the crucifixion of Christ. And it's such a beautiful part of it is the main part of the entire story of history. I don't know if you've ever heard someone say that history is really his story, in other words, God's story. And if you were to pinpoint the climax of the story of history, it would be the death of Jesus Christ, which of course would mean nothing without the resurrection, but vice versa. The resurrection would mean nothing without the death of Christ. So I'm so thrilled that I get to be live today to celebrate this beautiful part of history that we get to share celebrating today. And I mentioned this earlier on in the art group, that it seems odd to say the word celebrate. I really feel like we should say remember or something like that. But truly, if we're to celebrate salvation through Jesus, it's because of his death. So we memorialize his death on the cross through ultimately through the Lord's Supper, first and foremost, but also just through remembering that he died and then was buried and rose again. And then every Sunday we get to celebrate that as the Lord's Day. It's really beautiful. Good afternoon, Tammy. So glad to see you. I always think good morning because I'm used to being on Pacific time, but it's actually afternoon here too because I am on Central time now. Thank you for asking, Tammy. I don't know if you can tell my voice is still not quite there, so I'm going to do my best not to cough, but I am feeling a lot better. So just Lord willing, I will make it through today, but I did not want to miss today's live. So I'm very excited to be here with you guys. Alrighty, so as always, I want us to get started on the right foot. So we're going to read a scripture verse today from the Word of God to get you started today. And today I wanted to read a passage that really hits home when you think about, well, this is from Matthew's account of the crucifixion. Excuse me. See? It's from Matthew's account of the crucifixion. But what I want to emphasize is that the very end of this what the centurion does in his response, because the centurion had no reason to believe in Jesus Christ. He wasn't a Jew, wasn't a follower of Jesus. In fact, he was crucifying Jesus. He was overseeing the death of this man. But the events surrounding the death of Christ were so profound that even this man had something very profound to say when Jesus died. But I want to read a couple of verses today, a few verses today, just to lead up to that, and then also to read at least one of the accounts of the death of Christ. Okay, so this is Matthew chapter 27, verses 45 through 52. So Matthew 27, 45 to 52. And this is KJV, if anybody's interested in knowing. It says, "Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Elah, Elah, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, This man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge and filled it with vinegar and put it on a reed and gave him to drink. The rest said, Let be, let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city, and appeared unto many. Now, When the centurion and they that were with him, watching Jesus, saw the earthquake and those things that were done, they feared greatly, saying, truly, this was the Son of God. That one always gives me chills. I literally have goosebumps. I'm not sure if you can see. You probably can see them on screen. Tammy, I don't know if it's sinus issues or what, but yeah, I thankfully have a lot of nutrition flowing through my bloodstream right now, and it has spared me the worst of it, I hope. Bonnie, good afternoon to you too. Thanks for watching on YouTube. I'm so glad you're on today. I think you'll love today's artwork. It's going to be great. So anyway, read the accounts of the crucifixion today if you get a chance before you go into Sunday morning, celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. Make sure you remember his death, because the resurrection is nothing if he didn't first die. And it's just incredible to read the centurion say, truly, and those that were with him said it too, truly, this was the Son of God. I mean, it just gives me goosebumps all over. A friend of ours in Oregon, he has several daughters that are also great friends of mine. One of them is teaching our bookbinding class, and he was especially touched by what the centurion said. So his daughters wrote a song, a hymn, actually, very, very well composed hymn, based on that passage. And it says, they mocked one called Jesus with robe and thorn. And it's just powerful the way they put the verses together. And the climax of that hymn is truly, truly, this is the Son of God. And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. Jessica says, thank you for that. I've got goosebumps too. Oh, praise God. Yes, because it's the truth. I was reading actually the resurrection end of the story yesterday, and just it was like I had never read it before. It was just hitting me really hard. So I'm so glad. All right, let's get into some art journaling today, inspired by such a beautiful passage. And I want to walk you through this, but I also want to let you know some of the things you can do as alternative things. So just keep an ear out, keep an ear out, an eye out, whatever, for those things. I'll tell you as we go along what you can do differently. I am not in my normal studio. I'm in Tennessee in a studio that's only half set up. And so I only have some of my supplies, but what I would like to be using today is masking fluid. And if you don't know what masking fluid is, you can look that up online. It is basically it's almost like a glue, but you can peel it off after you have applied it and it has dried. And what that allows you to do is mask off certain areas of your artwork, and then leave those until you decide to pull it off and reveal the white behind. And so it just keeps some of the areas of your artwork from being, from getting painted on while you're working. Okay, so instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use masking tape. Now, I do normally use masking tape for the outside edges, so that's what I'm going to do right now. But what I wanted to show you is one thing I like to do sometimes with certain paintings, especially if I want to give them kind of a rugged, rustic look, is rather than use this crisp, super crisp edge that comes on the side of the masking tape, sometimes I like to just tear it straight down the middle and create a slightly rough edge to use for my my masking tape on the edges. Now I'm going to kind of tack some of that down. So see how it's trying to curl up on me? So I'm just going to tack some of that down like that. And I'm just going to tear it all the way down the middle. And you just want to do it slow and careful, because I do want the line itself to be fairly straight, but I just want it to have that rough torn edge. And this is a very subtle thing. It's really not critical. It's just kind of a fun extra texture that I like to add to some of my art journaling. So I'm going to do that around the outside edges of this page. And I really like the edges of a page that has a painting on it to be masked off. versus like just a little doodle in the corner or something. It just makes the painting look a lot more finished. So I really like that look. And this is actually washi tape. Just FYI, if you have some washi tape that you don't use a lot anymore, or you don't like it in particular, maybe it came in a bigger set and you didn't really like it in the first place, masking tape will work great, but washi tape also works wonderfully. And as far as I can tell, there isn't a whole lot of downside to using washi tape. I haven't really noticed that it's any worse or better than masking tape. They're pretty much the same texture and quality. I'm trying to get this about the same distance around the edge. So let me just straighten that out. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and I want to make sure when you do your masking tape, make sure that you really press it down, because the idea is that you don't want any paint or water to slip up under that edge. So just make sure you run your finger over it again. Tammy, yes, you can use blue painter's tape. And as a matter of fact, depending on the texture of your watercolor paper, so say you're using a more slick watercolor paper that is not so porous and not so easily torn, you could actually use Scotch tape, which sounds really weird, but it is slick. And if your paper does not tear easily, and you can test this on a piece of your paper that's not in your journal, or something on the back of a page or something like that, you can test it. So like press it down, leave it there for a few minutes, and then come back and try to peel it off. If it peels off nicely, sometimes you can use Scotch tape too. So no worries about that. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw the basics of the shape that we're gonna go for. So where did my pencil go? All right, so I'm gonna sharpen my pencil up because I want to make sure I don't end up with a big fat pencil line. And by the way, I got this pencil sharpener at Joann's. It's by Faber-Castell, and it is the best pencil sharpener I've ever had that is a hand crank pencil sharpener. It has a side for big pencils and small pencils, and then a side for colored pencils. And it does not break the lead at all. I love it. So highly recommend that if you ever get a chance to check that out. All right, so I'm just going to draw down in like the bottom fourth. Most of the time we want to talk in like thirds, but this I want to be real low. So like in the bottom fourth of this what am I trying to say? Page. There we go. Bottom fourth of this page, I'm going to start drawing a little hill that kind of comes down and then takes a deep dive down into the bottom of the page like that. So hopefully you all can see that. Let's make sure. Okay, I know that's super faint, but that's kind of the basic idea. And I'm just going to kind of rough it up a little by kind of going up and down a little bit over top of that line. And now I'm going to erase the darkest lines. So I say this a lot, but the reason you do this is so that when you come back in with color, you don't have pencil lines competing with your paint. You just want your paint to shine. So I'm just going to erase those darkest lines. All right. Now what I want to do is do a little bit more masking. Now the first thing I want to mask off is a little bit unique. So I'm going to move my journal for just a second. I'm going to make a little, I'm not sure what to call this, a little stencil. I'm not sure what to call this actually. I'm going to put some masking tape on this plastic. I'm going to tape it down first because it's trying to wrinkle up on me. And what I'm doing is I'm putting it on plastic so it's easier to cut into a shape. So basically I'm creating a stencil, I guess is the best way to say that. But I'm using just some scrap fabric that I have, which is trying to curl up on me. So I'm going to tape it down really good. And you can use any kind of plastic you have. It could be plastic wrap. It could be It could be the sleeves that go into a binder. You know, those like plastic sleeves, those actually work perfectly. I love them for this kind of thing. So all you're going to do is, let me just make sure I can see everybody. Okay. Yeah. All right. And as you guys are coming on, make sure you tell me where you are watching from and what time zone you are in, because I am not usually on Central Time. So I would love to know where you're watching from. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is line up quite a few pieces of quote unquote masking tape. And they're going to go in several different directions. Let's see, how do I want this one to go? What I'm creating right now is actually a lightning bolt. So I'm just going to take this masking tape in pieces and think about how a lightning bolt goes up the sky. And you can look at reference photos for this. And I'm just going to line it up on top of itself, going back and forth. And up toward the top, I'm going to let it split into two. And I know this looks really wonky right now, but it will make more sense later. Trust me. Okay. Let's see. Just making sure I layered that properly. Now I layered them from the bottom to the top so that I don't have to worry about them peeling wrong. Now let me grab my other marker because I want you guys to be able to see this. I'm going to grab a black Sharpie and I'm just going to draw the shape of the lightning that I'm going for as if I were just drawing it straight onto the page. Now lightning is really wobbly, so I'll let it go up that way and kind of split this way and that way. Okay, so now I'm going to take my scissors and just cut along that line. And obviously I'm not going to cut all those wiggly lines. I'm just going to get the idea of it down. And this is a great way to, you know, if you are trying to purchase some masking paper or something, I'm not even sure if there is something like that. It may be that you'd have to buy a big large sheet of it or whatever, but look, you can just line up a little bit of masking tape and go with it, and that'll totally work. So I'm just following this little line I just created. Oops. And like I said, this is just plastic packaging. It was actually some little like Ziploc things that I use for cards that I'm selling. And it's one that was torn that I didn't think I'd be able to use again. So I just used it for this. And the size of your lightning can vary, like different spots along the piece of lightning can get bigger or smaller. So this doesn't have to be like all exactly the same size. Obviously, it's really wobbly. Okay. So now what we'll do, let me make sure I'm lined up on the screen. Hey, Julie, I'm so glad to see you. Jessica says she's on Central Time as well, and she's watching from Illinois, 35 miles west of Chicago. That's awesome. I'm so glad you're here to join us. Thank you for being on. All right, so now I'm going to just kind of look at this and see, is this how I want my lightning to look? Now, I think this is actually a little too thick up here just for the size of the painting. So I'm going to skinny this up a little bit here. I might just run it along this side so it's easier. So I'm going to make my lightning just a little thinner. And I'll go along this side. And like I said, this is why I say if you had masking fluid, this would be a lot easier. You could just paint it straight onto the page, and that would work way better. But we use what we have, right? And if you don't have masking fluid, this just shows you that you can still get the same effect. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and peel this, and I layered it from bottom to top, which means I need to pull it off of the paper or off of the plastic from the bottom to the top. So let me find the bottom of it, if it'll let me. It's always hard to start these, especially once you've really pressed it down so that you don't lose it while you're working with it. All right, there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to start peeling this back. And if it, comes apart or something while I'm working on it, that's not a big deal. I can just, no big dealy, no big deal. I can just put it right back. So no problem. All right, I'm just going to see where that hits. I think that'll work right there. All right. So I'm just tacking down the beginning of it, and now I'm going to start pulling. I'm not sure if you can see that shiny edge, but I'm just going to start pulling it all the way up. So see, I've just kind of created my own little sticker stencil thingy. And just kind of gently pull that all the way off. All right. And this might be a little too harsh, so as I come back in, I might, fill in more of that, but I think it'll be okay for right now. Okay. So there's our little lightning, and what we'll do now is start to fill in the stormy clouds kind of around it. Tammy says, if I use masking fluid, how would I do it? So Tammy, just draw a lightning shape straight down on your page, just as you see this, and it doesn't have to be this shape. In fact, you can probably draw a much better lightning shape. Just look up some images of lightning, and if you find one that you like, go ahead and just draw it in with a pencil ahead of time, and then go in with your masking fluid, do the rest of your painting like we're about to do, and then pull the masking fluid off at the time that we would be pulling off this masking tape. I think I'm going to go ahead and just cut some of this a little bit already. Just in my mind, I'm already seeing where I want some clouds to be. And I think I want some of the lightning to kind of come up out of a cloud. So I'm just going to tear off some of this end right here. And maybe just a little bit of this one. So rather than having it come all the way, I might do it. Yeah. I'm still thinking. Yeah, I think I want most of the. I'm going to just cut this here. I think I want the top to not touch the very edge now that I'm looking at it. And just FYI, the Sharpie may rub off onto your paper. The only reason I used Sharpie was so that you guys could see it, okay? So don't worry about using Sharpie. Use pencil or something like that. Okay. Alrighty, now we're going to start in with the watercolor. So I like to use my Mozart watercolor set, which is called Como Rebi, and I'm going to put that up on the screen so you can see it if you're interested in knowing what I'm using. I also like to use my Master's Touch watercolor brushes. I like the Fine Art Studio ones, these ones here. This is a size 4 round, and then this one is a size 20-aught. Then I also just recently picked up this Princeton Velvet Touch brush, which I've been using a lot, and I'm sure I'll use quite a bit today. It's a size 10, and it's long, round. Alrighty. So, and then I've got this really, really fancy high-tech palette right here, my plastic plate palette, which I've been using because I don't have my fun little egg plate palette with me right now. Alrighty. Of course, I have my watercolor cloth as well and a jar of clean water. So we're going to start off by filling in the clouds first. I'm going to just really press down this masking tape so it doesn't start to come up while I'm painting. Really want to make sure that lightning bolt is preserved. Alrighty, so thanks, Julie. She says that's cool. Yeah, you're welcome, Tammy. Okay, so what we're gonna do is start in with the clouds, and I really like to do kind of a dark to light from the top of the sky to the horizon line. And we're gonna, oh. I almost forgot one more thing. Okay, we are gonna actually mask off the cross. And I'm going to cut across, well, I guess I don't need to cut. I think I have some extra scraps over here. Okay, so I'm gonna use these little scraps because this cross doesn't need to be perfect by any means because we're going to come back in and do some things to it. So I'm just going to put in a little cross on this hill right here. Let me find my scissors. So just grab some little pieces of your masking tape and you can cut them into a cross shape. And you can do one cross for Jesus, or you can do all three. I'm going to go ahead and do all three, but I'm going to go ahead and leave the others a little smaller. I want this a lot smaller than this. Okay. I might just mask off only Jesus's cross and then just come in and do some detail for the others. So I'm just going to leave this like that for now. Doesn't need to be precise. Mostly the only reason I'm masking this right now is not to get the exact shape. It's to leave some white so that if I need to come back in and have some highlights, I don't have such a hard time getting those. All right. Sometimes working with the masking tape is more difficult than just dealing with painting around when you need it later. Okay, there we go. That'll work. All right, now we're going to come in with some color. I love painting clouds of all kinds, so I'm excited to do this one. It's going to be a lot of wet and wet. So we're going to start with, I'm actually going to start with a pink. And this is what we're going to use to emphasize the color of the lightning. So I'm going to use the neon pink in my palette, mix it with some white. Sorry, not white. Mix it with some water. Make sure my neon is very clear and clean. And I'm just going to keep it really watered down. And I'm going to paint this right around the edge of the lightning. Tammy, are you following along? Sounds like by your question that you're following along. I'd love to know if you're following along as I paint, or if you're going to watch the replay later. I love when you guys pick up your paints and start painting with me. That's so fun. Okay, so I'm just going to let that kind of fill in. And now, before this starts to create some lines, I'm going to start pulling it out into the rest of the painting. And I'm going to start creating some cloud shapes. So to do that, I'm just imagining some big fluffy clouds. Kind of mean, scary, big puffy clouds. All along here. And they're going to be big, round clouds, storm clouds, obviously. So I want to leave lots of area where they can kind of spread out. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of imagining some big puffs over here on the left and on the right. So now I'm going to start coming in with some reds and purples. I'm going to start with this deep crimson color. This is number 17 crimson, and I'm going to mix it with my neon pink just so I stick with some of the same colors. And I'm going to let that color start to kind of bleed into what we already have over here. Ooh, it's mean looking. This is kind of scary. I'm not sure if I even want to go that dark. I think around this cross, I'm forgetting that I need to fill that in so that the masking tape does its job. So I'm going to just fill that in like that. Whew. Something about painting with red is always a little bit overwhelming, especially for an important painting. Okay. So I'm just trying to maintain the shape of some clouds here and there. Those will kind of start to appear as we get into some of the darker shades as well. I'm just kind of getting the idea of those clouds in. All right, now I'm going to switch to purple, or some of the purple shades. I'm going to start with, I don't know how to say this color. You guys have told me before, C-E-R-I-S-E. I have no idea. It's number 22 in my palette, so if you know what that is, it has this really beautiful fuchsia color to it. And I just think it works really well as a transition between the red and that deep purple that we're going to be adding in here in just a minute. So I'm going to start dropping that in. And notice this is wet and wet again. So I'm going to start adding some just really rich colors. And if you notice my brush shape, as I go along, I kind of change the way I'm holding my brush. And that's just to either let more or less color hit the page. So that's either using more of the belly of the brush or more of the tip of the brush. And I go into more of that in some of our classes inside the Artworthy Journal Club, but you may notice like in some of the bottom of these cloud shapes, I'm gonna lay my brush down a little bit more. And that's gonna give it that more stretched out shape a little bit. I'm using my number 24 round brush. I think I forgot to say that. This is a Master's Touch brush. Oops, almost dipped my brush in my tea. Don't do that. Okay, now I'm going to use the Hyacinth Violet. Now we're coming in with some real dark violet colors. Still working wet and wet. And I'm going to make this very saturated. Really try to get a lot of color down on the page this time. All right, now this time I'm going to really try to pay attention to where I want my clouds to start and stop. So I'm just going to kind of add some dark shadows, especially along where I think the top of the clouds are going to be. And bring those darkest purples to the top edges. And I can just kind of sprinkle some of this purple all the way down to deepen up a lot of these cloud shapes that are already here. And I can even bring it along these edges. One thing I'm trying to avoid is getting too close to the lightning bolt down here at the bottom, because I have this nice light white haze around it, and I want to maintain that, so I'm not going to get too close to that right there. And I'm just kind of letting some of the colors run together in those areas by themselves. Now another thing I'm doing is taking a clean wet brush and going along the edges of these white spaces so that those are not super crisp. I want to kind of smooth out those edges a little bit, let them kind of fade out into the rest of the painting so that they're there for sure, because I don't want to lose them. I do not want to paint in that white space. It's a really important white space right there. But the edges are super harsh, so I don't want those to be really crisp like that. I'm going to do the same thing right here. And I'm cleaning my brush every time. I'm just kind of using a clean wet brush and then going and cleaning my brush off again and coming back with a clean wet brush all over again. So I'm just kind of repeating that process. And look at all those colors start to run together. Isn't that beautiful? I think there's something really pretty about the way a sky looks when a storm happens. So I like to try to capture that. Okay, again, I'm taking a clean wet brush coming along the edges of these white spaces and I'm just taking off that real harsh layer of color. All right, now before this totally dries, I'm going to come back in with an even darker shades. I mean, we're just going to go real dark here. So I'm going to go with my deep blue, number 90, and violet. And I like to mix those two colors together because this palette does not have a very good royal blue, like, I don't know what to call it, but not a very true deep, like cobalt blue. I'm going to actually add in some azurite blue as well to get that nice stormy look. Okay, and I'm going to add this up here. Whoops, if it's still wet enough. If it's not, I may not be able to. Okay, I'm just going to go in while it's a little bit too dry, but I'm going to do it anyway because I really want this color in there. I'm going to go real dark. I really want this deeper color. And I'm going to try to be real careful to maintain some of those cloud shapes that formed up there. Get that darker color again. And I'm just kind of trying to come in really saturated with that color. That may be as far as I can go with it. Let's see if I can get a little further down without hitting some dry areas. Okay, I think I can pull in a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe a touch there, a little tiny bit at the bottom. Wow. I don't want to work dry on wet because, or wet on dry, because I don't want to have some harsh lines. So I'm glad that was still wet enough to work in. All right. I think that's as much as I want to attempt. So I'm just going to work where I've already put color, kind of deepen those up. Wow, isn't that beautiful how the colors running together like that? Ah, love it. Really pretty. Okay, so what I want to do now, well, I have this big patch down here that's not been worked with too much. That's where I stopped because I was trying to add that other color in. I think I'm just going to work in some peachy colors down here. Kind of soften that up down there a little bit. Oops. I don't want to lose my nice cloudiness over here. All right, I'll just let that be like that. I'm going to use a clean wet brush to smooth out this edge a little bit. Yet again, I don't want a real crisp edge up here. So I'm just going to kind of keep that looking smooth. I'm losing that white space a little bit, but it's okay. Okay, I think that'll work. All right, now I'm gonna, wow, that's gonna be really wet. I'm gonna pull this cross off right now, see how that looks. Okay, that gives us a little bit of cross. The cross isn't gonna stay white like that. I just wanted to have the shape there so that if I want to add some highlights, I have that option. Let's see. Tammy says, do I use masking fluid for the cross too? Yes, you can. And yes, she is working with me while I go. Oh, that's so fun. I'm so glad to hear that. That's awesome. I can't wait to see your painting. It'll be so fun to see. All right. Yeah, this is going to need to dry just a little bit before we do anything with the sky again. But I'm going to go ahead and move this little tail of the lightning up so that I can work on this hill. And so to work on the hill, I'm mostly just going to work as though it's a silhouette. So the key is you don't want to start doing anything unless the rest of your sky is dry. If your sky is dry, then go for it. But if it's not, make sure your skyline right here, especially down here by the horizon line, is dry, because you don't want your hill bleeding into that horizon. So I'm going to grab this number 10 round Princeton Velvet Touch brush. And I'm going to work with some of the same colors we've already been working with. So I'm going to start with that real deep purpley blue that we had before. So I'm going to start with the number 34 violet and azurite blue. Now the key with the horizon is that, or it's not horizon, I'm sorry, silhouette. Anytime you do a silhouette, you definitely, excuse me, you definitely want to keep your color saturated, because if it's not saturated, you'll be able to see white space through it. And when you have a silhouette, you're not seeing white space through it. So you don't want that to happen. So make sure your color is very, very saturated, meaning you don't have a lot of water happening. So I'm mixing my azurite blue and deep blue and violet into this. I'm actually going to go ahead while this is still wet and take an even darker layer of color. And a lot of times when I'm adding color, you guys are like, stop! Isn't it dark enough? But there's something about adding one more layer, one more layer, one more layer. It just brings it even deeper. And if I know I'm going to go even deeper later with the cross or something like that, I'm just going to want to have the option of going that dark. So I kind of want it already to exist somewhere in the painting. I'm kind of creating a little cloud over here too. And I really want to have like this little halo going on around the lightning. I'm not sure if it's going to look weird, so I think I'm going to only go blue that far down, and I might just grab some of this pink and then just do it pink on the left here. Might be kind of weird, but we'll see. We'll see when we pull the tape off. Can't know till then. All right. I might just go ahead and pull the tape off now in case I need to work with anything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Pull this tape. Ooh, crazy. Okay, so there's our lightning so far. And just making sure I can see everything. Okay, so I think what I want to do is use a wet brush and just kind of give the lightning some shape. So I'm just going to use the clean brush, come around the lightning, thin it up a little bit, and also make it look almost round by smoothing out the edges. So I'm using a clean wet brush very carefully, pulling in some of the paint color from the edges of the lightning. And that's just making the lightning have sort of a rounded shape because it's shaded on the edges. So I'm just going to use this wet brush and come all the way down. I'm going to try to smooth out these dark lines here. And then just bring that color into that bolt of lightning. I'm going to kind of stop the blue right there and hopefully just pull in some pinks and things. Oops. So it kind of has a blue haze, but that's okay. So you can see I'm not really adding any color. I'm just using what's already in the painting, reactivating it with water, and then letting that create a shadow around the bolt of lightning all the way down. All right. And I think I can do maybe just a little bit of I'm thinking about red and pink. I'm just going to go along the right edge with some red. I'm just kind of blending it out to the right hand side because I don't want there to be like a really strong line there, but I do want to skinny up that lightning bolt just a little bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. Obviously really stormy up toward the top, which is what we're going for. And just taking a wet brush and smoothing out any of that that's a little too much. All right, now back to the silhouette that we were working on. So I'm mostly just going to do blues and purples. So I'm going to start with that azurite blue mixed with violet and start with the cross itself. And I'm just going to put some color on the left side of the cross mostly to create like a shadow. Like that. And I'm going to let that dry before I do anything else. So now I'm going to just do the rest of the hill while that's drying. So again, violet and blue of your choice. And I can just kind of create the rocks and stubble around the base of the cross, right where the lightning is hitting as well. And I'm going to bring that all the way down using a lot of the belly of the brush. And then just bring it all the way down to the base of the hill. There's a little tiny bit of a hill down here that I don't want to miss. Okay, and I'm going to leave just little specks of white down there. I think that's okay, especially since the top has so much white in it. But I am going to paint in the very edge so that my little masking tape does its job of creating that cool little edge. But I'm going to leave those little, I don't know if you can see those. Let's see if you can see those on the screen. Tammy, you can take the masking fluid off of the lightning bolt and the cross if you'd like to. I'm leaving the masking tape around the edge, depending on what you used. Oh, I forgot to take this little banner off. There we go. We'll move that for you. Okay, so I'm going to just keep that real nice and dark right there. And just kind of come in real dark around the cross and give it some nice darker shading on the left side of the hill. Okay, so on the edges of the cross, again, I'm just going to come in with a slightly darker blue, like that. And then what I'd like to do is just do a couple of small, let's see, how do I want to have these? I want to have the other crosses, but I don't want them to outshine his cross. So I'm just going to do them in black. Well, they're not black, sorry. They're in the silhouette color, but it's kind of acting like our black right now. So I'm just going to do them in a real thin, kind of a navy blue color almost, actually. All right, there we go. And I just did those with the tip of this brush. Now I'm feeling like, let's see, is there anything that should have? I'm going to go ahead and take off the edge masking tape and see if that needs anything else. So be real careful when you pull this off. A lot of times, if your paint is still wet, you can tear your paper. You can also tear your paper if your paint is dry, but you definitely don't want to smear paint. A little bit of my paint came out underneath the masking fluid over there, and that's okay. No big deal. But it creates that really cool rough edge. You can see that right there under that. Now I'm going to take my 20-aught brush, and I'm just going to take a few of the colors and go along that lightning bolt. See if I can't make it shine a little bit more. I'm going to use neon pink to start with. I'm just going to go along the left side of the lightning bolt. And I'm just going to try to make it a little rough. So to make it rough, I'm just kind of going zigzaggy up and down that line. Let's see. All right, I think that's going to give it a little bit more definition, and then I'll go, as it transitions, I'll go to more of a blue and purple color. Okay, and I don't really think it needs it any further than that. I'm just going to take a clean wet brush and blend that out all the way down. Lightning is such a funny thing. It's hard to capture that crazy amazing light display. Okay, I also grabbed my white pencil from Prismacolor, and I'm just going to try to, if I need to, I might need to brighten that up a little bit, but this will help me kind of blend in the edges a little bit. Some of this lightning. All right, and I think that's all I'm going to do right now. So that is that. This is not going to actually have any words on it. I'm going to leave it just like it is. But that's all I have for you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed that. Just a really interesting Good Friday painting. Hi, Daniel. Good afternoon. Jackie says, I see a face. I'm wondering where you see it. Do you see it here or here? I could almost put them in a couple of different places. That's interesting. Yeah, I wonder where you see it. You should tell me. What if you use some yellow in it? The lightning bolt, Tammy says. You could, although a lot of the pictures of lightning that you see are mostly white. So, but it's up to you. You can add white, you can add yellow if you want to. If you did, I would probably just put it on one edge. I wouldn't paint in all of the white. I would leave a lot of the white and then add your yellow in. But anyway, this is interesting. I haven't done a painting like this before, so that was a fun experiment. A lot of different colors that I haven't tried before, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next Friday. In the meantime, God bless your Good Friday. Happy Easter. And take some time today to think about the death of Jesus Christ before you get ready to celebrate the resurrection. Thank you, Leslie Ann. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All righty. Take care, everybody. And I will see you next time. Bye.